Kaon yan isla imatsungin tachuin no la mawe Estados Unidos diwa dipikwas lang kamap potla kamakanin chiyo la oko Snisla mana chinik minchik o agentes de migración ni.
It's been 3 years since British forces supported by the US invaded Rasan to topple dictator Rainerio Olguin and establish a democracy in the small island nation. The war was brief, ending in the capture of Olguin and the withdrawal of British forces. Since then, the democratic nation has been stable until October, when members of MSPR launched a deadly attack on a prison in the north of the country. With exclusive footage, Devo News will show you what happened and how this attack could further destabilize the Caribbean region. So we are travelling with the Federal Anti-Terrorist Unit in Rassa, not too far from a city called Port Terra, in an area where MSPR is known to operate. This unit is bringing in men and equipment to the prison that was attacked, as this is the only facility on the island which can hold high-risk prisoners, especially those with links to the former dictatorship. However, with the recent MSPR attack, the soldiers are on edge. MSPR refers to the Movimiento de Salvación del Pueblo Rassa, a communist guerrilla faction made up of primarily former military personnel from the previous regime. When this dictatorship fell in 2020, the new Rasan Republic enacted economic reforms, cutting defense spending, resulting in a large number of former soldiers losing their positions and jobs. Whilst economic reform has benefited the country, anti-government and British sentiment has increased, and it is in these emotions that the MSPR is using to gain support and promote its objective of returning the previous military regime to power. The group was considered benign by both UK and US governments. That was until its attack on the Gulf Coast prison facility. On October 12th, over 40 heavily armed MSPR fighters attacked the prison from two sides. The resulting battle lasted just 40 minutes, but left 9 security forces dead, as well as over 15 MSPR fighters. Devo News has obtained exclusive video footage of the attack and interviewed surviving security forces to piece together what happened. So we have just arrived at the prison centre, and there's a heavy police and army presence, and when you look at the level of destruction around here, you can see why the Rasan government is still on high alert. This attack was not just a surprise for the government officials, but also the security forces which were manning this prison. Lieutenant Mateo was one of the officers on duty that night. Using his and other accounts from the remaining survivors and footage from the MSPR, we have reconstructed how the prison attack was carried out. At the time of the attack, the prisoners were kept in these two buildings. Mateo was working here, when at 11:40, two groups of MSPR fighters moved into the hills overlooking the prison. One group then attacked the guard towers here on the western side of the prison. They used RPGs and machine guns, shooting at the guard towers. Whilst the guards were focused on the west, a larger group of fighters moved here to the north of the prison. Mateo explained what happened next. When did you realize something was wrong? Whilst MSPR fighters were shooting at the guard towers, a small group moved close to the prison. This footage shows that they were heavily armed with a mixture of weapons. However, it is not the weapons that worries Dr. Felix Nielsen, a professor at Rasan University's Department of War Studies.
Ari sumasta parlani, kasiaman kaisutive, oro rumanta volia ya taman. Uchi manta, tata imanta o mama imanta ya jalan. Ari parlanit. Escuela español mana Universidad de Estados Unidos. Kasiaman kaisutive. Ari sumasta parlani, uchi manta.
After reaching the prison, one of the fighters then climbs over the parking lot wall and runs towards the prison wall. We then see the fighter place a large backpack against the wall. After moving back, the backpack explodes.
Das lang gingiltsukut. Das lang tastaku. Hasta ahora sin Universidad Rainerio Universidad Autónoma de Puebla.
With the wall breached, MSPR fighters begin to move into the prison complex itself. In this frame, we can see one of the officers moving towards the admin hut before he is gunned down by MSPR fighters.
Tasla sino kastawakas cha chima ukong gitasku to lima kuchi. Wasan talima kuchi ni masla sli lima kuchi kan.
As more fighters enter the prison, they spread out and start shooting at the remaining officers. One group moves towards a small administration building. Here they find one officer who's attempting to surrender. He has his hands raised with no weapon visible. After questioning him about the location of Rainerio Olguin, they shoot him. They then throw a grenade inside the building, storming inside and brutally killing the unarmed survivors at point-blank range.
Kolon sila makasa. Waslan do gilsu ko tayo mas lito tunako. Waslan do ukong gintas ko tayo makasi unok.
This initial attack, although deadly, was just a distraction. With the officers' attention focused on what was happening inside the prison, they did not see the MSPR fighters' next move. At around 12:10, a truck driven at high speed approaches the prison. The second group, which had remained hidden, then opens fire on the remaining towers on the northern side. The driver parks near the prison wall and leaves the truck, running towards the hills before he is shot dead. A few minutes later, at 12:13, the truck, which had been filled with explosives, detonates. The explosion was so large that
Nueva York.
Looking at the size of this crater and the destroyed walls, it just gives you an idea of how powerful this explosion was. With the walls destroyed, MSPR fighters rushed through the hole into the prison and moved towards cell block B, where the most dangerous members of the previous dictatorship were being held. They then placed another explosive device on the door to the cell block. Dr. Nielsen says that this device is called a breaching charge, and its use is significant.
Wasla jo gintas ko ti klima kuchina ni ma duwa ketua do lakso tua. So na jo imali li.
After blowing the door of the cell block, the fighters rush inside. They make their way to a cell housing Rainerio Olguin, the former dictator of Rasan. Why do you think they wanted to free Olguin when he was known for his brutal treatment towards the Rasan people?
Kolon sila makasa. Liwas la kaskingas lang iti makpo ni manda uyumanda lima kuching liwa langgatas kuhutis lang so ima mak.
Do you know people who would want things to go back to how it was before the democratic government took over?
Kasi yung aksyon gimbostani waslay mawani kani likat sing ni tani wing gimbostat sta tantan katuwa to kasi di pasowat.
Mateo then showed us where he and the remaining officers began to fight back against the attack.
So nakatiwan so anti mihin gimbot sa ko yin so
How close were the MSPR fighters? With Olguin freed, we see the MSPR fighters begin to pull out of the prison. It is during this retreat that one of Mateo's grenades lands near two rebel fighters. The rebel recording this footage was fatally wounded. However, the video continues to record and shows Olguin escaping. 2 days later, on October the 14th, the MSPR released this video from Olguin, in which he calls for armed resistance against the democratically elected government. Since the release of that recording, the Rasan government has launched a joint military and police operation aimed at destroying the MSPR. But with weak security forces, combined with this attack at what is supposed to be the most secure place on Rassa, has raised doubts if the government can win against this guerrilla force, and if they can't, will this lead to Western powers intervening in what could become a bloody insurgency?